Heiress Majida Aslam, whom we are extremely honoured to have here. On behalf of the Mill Hill Park Residents Association, thank you all so much for coming along today to be part of this unveiling ceremony. The plaque behind that curtain, soon to be revealed, commemorates Richard White, born 1767, died 1849, an eminent lawyer and founder of the Mill Hill Park estate here. Richard White it was who built a great Regency house, part of which the east wing survives as 11 Avenue Crescent. Our whole estate, for some 20 years now, a conservation area, owes its shape and unity to Richard White. You can indeed see White's influence all around if you look and know where to look. In fact, I can't help but wonder what Richard White would have said if he had been here today. And it may be that we learn that sooner than you expect. I don't know.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for turning up. I am Richard White. I am quite dead, but I am a lawyer. And this means that I have discovered a loophole in the law of nature, through which I have just stepped. I must admit that I am very, very touched that you should have turned up for this event. I have been dead an awful long time, but I felt that I ought at least to make an appearance for such a thing. I confess myself a little confused. What have I done that should warrant this honor? By the standards of my time, my life was perhaps unexceptional for a man of my station. As has been noted, I was born in 1767 in Salisbury to a wealthy family, estates in Wiltshire, estates in Hampshire. We were not short of a penny. Thereafter, I went to Cambridge. I was admitted to Inner Temple, and from 1791 I practiced as a lawyer, and I was very successful. Very successful. By 1809, I decided that although I had very fine chambers at 14 Essex Street in the shadow of the Old Bailey, I needed somewhere to live, somewhere comfortable, somewhere in the country. And there happened to be an auction in 1809, and I went, and I bid, and I bought several patches of land, which I patched together and created the Mill Hill Park Estate. I also had built a very fine house, very elegant. I would like you to look at this house now. Can you see it? Now, I want you to imagine that the facade is not there. It's a little vulgar and a little later. Behind it, there is quite a substantial house. Imagine it doubled. That will take it to the other side of the road. Imagine it trebled, and that will take it, heavens, what's that? A good deal in that direction. If you had come to visit me, and I think you all look respectable, so I might have invited you, then I would have sent perhaps my carriage for you. Ladies, you may have read some of the novels of Miss Austen. You know the symbolic social significance of the sending of the carriage. When you're thinking of my mansion, we're not quite Pemberley, but we're certainly a cut above Longbourn. I might have sent my carriage for you. You would have arrived, you would have passed the lodge, you would have passed down the handsome avenue of elms that I had planted, and you would have come down here. It would have looked a little different, but there would have been trees all the same, and you would have arrived in your carriage, and this would have been the front of my house. You would have been admitted by my butler, John Woodward. He would have helped you down from the carriage. He would have brought you into the house. He would have introduced you to me. Had it been a fine day, perhaps a slightly finer day than today, then we might have gone through the house and we would have gone onto the southern terrace. On the southern terrace, we could have taken the air, enjoyed the sunshine. We could have looked towards, well, it had been called Mill Hill Fields, perfectly ordinary fields. Indeed, the tithe book of the time says, house new built on Mill Hill Fields. I converted Mill Hill Fields into some excellent parkland. with trees, with orchards that had cherries. And indeed, just down by Bollow Lane, there was a large and very productive fish pond, which supplied the household with fish. Excellent gardens. To the western side of the gardens, pleasure grounds. We could have walked, we could have taken our ease. And that is what I see now when I look here, rather than these perfectly respectable middle-class villas. I'm sure I'm very happy that they have appeared since my death. I think I should say one or two words about the women involved in Acton Hill House, for that was the name of my mansion. I did not marry for the first several decades of my adult life. I understand that a modern mind might wonder what that signifies. I have to say that a mind of my own time would not have wondered at all. It would have been perfectly normal. However, I shared this house initially with my dear sister Emma. What a wonderful woman. It was so pleasant to enjoy her company, her ability at music. And we did this very, very successfully until 1816, when I'm very pleased to say she met Edward Blaquier, a very interesting man, very active on the front of Greek independence, very noisy on the London Greek Committee. She married him and she left. And I was alone for a while. And then through my family connections in the West Country, I met Anne Tylee. Dear Anne, such a homely creature. so kind to me in her years with me. She came with a substantial fortune. It's purely accidental. I was quite well off. There was no need for that. And we lived here very happily for some 10 years. And then I'm sad to say that Anne died, and I found myself alone again. I must admit, I had learned to enjoy the company of women and decided that I ought to perhaps marry again, which I did so in 1833 in Paris, where I married dear Mrs. Mary Hatzel. She was really a very, very fine woman, whom life had not treated well, for she had married Mr. Hatzel and had 2 handsome children, which were taken from her. And what this meant was that the £80,000 that the children had been left had passed to her, and that when she married me, the £80,000 became mine. I know that it is quite common for ordinary people to be cynical about lawyers and about perhaps the law. Indeed, the law, I have heard, gentlemen, is sometimes called an ass. But as we know, that is not a healthy attitude, not at all. The anarchists would have it that left to our own devices, we would all know how to behave. And I look at you and I can see that most of you probably would. We need the stiffening of the law. We need the law to keep us in order. We need to devise the law. It is an excellent human institution. But lawyers, I am a lawyer. I have heard the jokes. How was copper wire invented? 2 lawyers fighting over a penny. Why are lawyers buried 27 feet deep? Because deep down they are very good. I'm afraid this is a coarse opinion. It's not one that I share, but I know that there have been some in my profession who have not always done it credit. In my life, I sought to bring into being the Law Society, a regulatory body to ensure that those scurrilous wretches were expelled from the profession. But even so, what have I done to warrant the plaque? I don't think my contribution to the establishment of the Law Society is commonly recognized. Do I mind? Actually, I don't. Probably the most immodest thing that I could say about myself is that I'm modest. And I'll prove that, if I may, now that I'm dead, by citing the first passage in my will, which said that should I die within 10 miles of this spot, which I did, that I should be buried within 4 to 7 days in St. Mary's Churchyard, which I was, and that on no account should a penny above £50 be spent on my funeral. I have been a lawyer. I have seen what people can do at their deaths and what they can will through their legacies. What has been mine? I wrote a will. I left half my estate to one of my nephews, who I greatly enjoyed seeing grow up. another half of my estate to my first wife's nephew, who I'd also enjoyed working with, another part of my estate to one of my nieces, who I wanted to have sufficient independence of means to maintain her intellectual independence, but no, I don't think this warrants a plug. The creating of the estate? Perhaps. But I'd like you to notice this. What you're celebrating today, I never intended. When I bought those plots of lands in 1809, I had no idea that more than 200 years later, you, excellent people, would be here to celebrate the consequences of my act. I thank you. And now, I will pass back through that loophole in the natural law.
Thank you so much, Richard, for putting in such great perseverance and letting us share your world.
We've got to have a fanfare. When you're ready.
Oh, great.
Just finally, a few words of thanks to many people who have done so much to make today possible. First, our member Jerome Farrell, who I mentioned earlier, whose idea to put a plaque up it first was. Much of what you've heard about Richard White is based on his meticulous researches, and indeed he must be the undisputed world authority on Richard White and the White family. No less importantly, Councillor Yvonne Johnson, who has long had the vision of celebrating White's legacy in this way. It's thanks in great part to Yvonne that the plaque has received the funding support from Ealing Council through the South Acton Ward Forum as a symbol that would draw attention to our history and help foster local identity and pride in the community and its heritage. Thanks to Ray Bachelor, not least for reincarnating Richard White so specially. and to Malcolm Temple and Jerome for installing the plaque. Thanks to Paul, the Right Honourable the Earl of Tankerville, and the other residents of 11 Avenue Crescent for giving the plaque such a fine home. Thanks to Sergeant Williams and his team for keeping Avenue Crescent blissfully free of colours. And my personal thanks to the organising team, along with Rex Bonnet, who've done so very much to make today possible. Finally, thanks to our marvellous fanfare trumpeter.
Oh, yes.
She vanished.
She vanished! Oh, she's here in West.
But I think her agent's just next
Yes. Who may like now to play us out with another splendid blast from the Beethoven fanfare.
Or have you inherited a thing?
We used to live in Roman close actually. We used to live right next door. Fellow members, by the way.
Yes.
Having you got